I spent almost all of 1967 in Vietnam. I was assigned to the 1st Cavalry Division, spent the first 2 months as a helicopter pilot in a troop carrying unit. And after 2 months, I was transferred to a task force of the 1st Cav, which operated from an airfield outside a town named Phan Thiet, which is a fishing town on the South China Sea. We had a company of troop-carrying helicopters, which were 16 helicopters. We had a platoon of gunships, which were 4 gunships. And we had a battalion of infantry, and we had some artillery, and we had some scouts. And our mission was to maintain the peace in the province that we were located in. I ended up being the platoon leader of the gun platoon. As I said, we had 4 helicopters in the unit. We struggled to keep 2 of them operating at any one time because of maintenance responsibilities. We did a lot of different missions, but in one particular mission, we were called out in the just after midnight on the morning of November 8th, 1967, to go and provide some fire support to a South Vietnamese fort located along Highway 1, which was on heavy attack from a battalion-sized Viet Cong force. So we flew out there and basically laid suppressive fire around the perimeter of the fort. We would go out, we would unload our ammunition, we would come back and reload and rearm and go back out, and we must have done that a half a dozen times during the course of the night. In the early morning hours, the attack broke off, and the Viet Cong started fading away into the surrounding countryside. And the commander wanted to try and pursue them. So I had the scout helicopters go out looking for them and asked the gun platoon, such as it was, to also go and see if we could locate these troops. So we were flying around the area, and our one of my gunners saw some Viet Cong bodies, he thought, laying on the ground. But then he noticed one of the bodies starting to move. So he started firing down, and all of the bodies all of a sudden came to life and started firing back at us. So I circled the helicopter around, trying to get a line on where we could make a rocket attack and make a machine gun pass at these troops. And probably did not do a good enough job in giving myself a long distance run. I ended up getting off one pair of rockets. My co-pilot got off some machine gun fire, but very shortly we were right over top of the Viet Cong, who were firing up into our helicopter. And we were getting hit pretty significantly by ground fire. We noticed that the helicopter started to pitch up and to the right, and I could not get the control stick to move. I got my co-pilot on the control stick as well. He wasn't able to help at all. So we start pitching up and to the right. I got off a Mayday call and told whoever was listening that we were going down. We ended up turning the helicopter completely upside down, crashing through the trees and landing on the ground upside down. I was still strapped in. My co-pilot was strapped in. The door gunner and crew chief in the back were laying on the roof of the helicopter. We all managed to scramble out. One of the door gunners ended up with a broken back. My co-pilot had gotten hit in the face with the gun sight, so his face was kind of a bloody mess. The other door gunner and myself had bumps and bruises, but we managed to get out. But the fuel cell from the helicopter had ruptured, and we were leaking jet fuel, and it was heading down towards the running engine. And very shortly, the helicopter caught fire. The machine gun ammunition started to cook off. When the rockets were finally hit with the fire, the helicopter exploded. It was at that point that I was actually moving from one side of a tree line to another, and the force of explosion kind of knocked me over. In reaction to my Mayday call, we did have helicopters flying overhead almost from the time we hit the ground. So, we felt like we were probably safe from a further ground attack, but we were still stranded on the ground, far away from anything. We were on the ground for probably 45 minutes to an hour before finally a flight of 4 helicopters came in and put some troops on the ground and escorted us out and took us back to base camp. So fast forward 40 years later, I moved to North Strabane and joined the local VFW. And when they looked at my discharge papers, it kind of prompted me to do some research to see how closely my recollection of my story matched reality. So I started to do some research on the internet, and one thing led to another, and I was able to find my co-pilot, my wingman, and the 2 pilots who rescued me. And we have since attended reunions together, and everybody remembers different parts of the story, but it kind of all came together. And it's been very rewarding to reconnect with those people. As kind of a footnote, 3 years after my tour of service in Vietnam, my brother served a tour in Vietnam as a helicopter pilot. He decided to make a career out of the Army, and several years after he returned from Vietnam, he was stationed at Fort Dix, New Jersey. And my parents and I went out to visit him, and I'm not quite sure how he did it, but he managed to commandeer an aircraft on a Saturday morning. And my brother and I flew my parents in a UH-1 helicopter over the terrain of central New Jersey. A great memory for them, I'm sure.